Caravan weights, towing stability. Is my caravan overloaded? Why doesn't it tow well? We are going to be getting into all of that and more with Leon Tsigros from Safe to Tow. Now, this is going to be a fascinating conversation, a great episode of Tow and Tell. Leon, are you nervous, mate?
I'm excited to get into the juicy stuff.
This is going to be a fascinating conversation.
I'm looking forward to it. Let's get into it.
Caravan weights, balancing your van, loading it correctly to minimise sway. You know, all of these topics are hot button issues that still cause confusion out there amongst caravanners, especially those who are new to the lifestyle. Now, I'm joined by Leon Tsigros from Safe to Tow. We're going to chat about all things relating to caravan weights, stability on the road, and much more. Leon, mate, welcome to Tow and Tell.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Leon, first, tell me about Safe to Tow. This is a mobile caravan weighing operation, isn't it? And some of your clients, they include caravan manufacturers as well as owners of second-hand caravanners. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So Safe to Tow started about 3 years ago, and initially we started as just a mobile weighing service. However, over the years, we've evolved into other areas like caravan wheel alignments. We do some basic maintenance on caravans. And as you mentioned, we do some warranty work for some big manufacturers, not just in Victoria, also manufacturers from interstate. We might get a call from the manufacturer asking us to go on site to the customer's house. They might be having some swaying issues, or they might be scrubbing tyres. So this is where the business has taken us, and we're really excited by it.
So I just want to, for the benefit of our viewers, establish your credentials a little bit, because we are going to get into some nitty-gritties. You had a background as a vehicle mechanic, but then also as a Boeing aircraft technician. What drew you to that line of work? So
the aircraft side of it I sort of just fell into, but it taught me a lot, and it actually put me in a really good position to do what I'm doing today. So I always had a passion for cars. So straight out of high school, my parents said to me that one thing they wanted me to do was finish my VCE, which I did, and then I got into mechanics. That was my passion. Then when my wife and I decided we wanted to start a family, I felt like I needed to venture off into another path that was going to offer and pay the bills. So I got into aircrafts, and I did that for about 12 years, and it taught me so much about like engineering backgrounds, aerodynamics, just how important weights can be, not just like in an aircraft, but just in anything in general. And that's where it's put me in this position now to be offering this service that we are today.
So, Leon, speaking of weights, we often tell people to take their RV over a weigh bridge, but tell me why that isn't necessarily the best approach.
Well, with the weigh bridge, you don't have someone like myself guiding you, analysing the data, looking at ways that we can improve your setup. So knowing you're compliant is just one little area of towing safely. You're ticking that box, but also, for example, I'll get a bit technical here. So on a dual axle caravan, you've got 4 wheels. On a weigh bridge, you don't get what each individual wheel weighs. So on our purpose-built scales, we can tell you exactly what each wheel weighs. So then if we need to go and distribute some weight in other areas, for example, if your front axle has 1,200 kilos of weight on it, and your rear axle only has 800 kilos on it, that can lead to trailer sway. So you don't get that information from a weigh bridge. And that's why it's really important to weigh each individual wheel, so that you can then take that data, make the changes, and improve your setup.
So when you say you can tell what each individual weighs, are you talking about the amount of load on that wheel?
Correct. That's right.
And what about like weigh bridges that are, for public use? They're probably more geared towards B-doubles, semi-trailers, things that weigh 10 tonne plus. So
they are.
Are they as precise?
So, to my knowledge, they're calibrated to 20 kilo increments, whereas our purpose-built scales are to the kilo. Now, that can be, although 20 kilos doesn't seem like a lot, but that can be the difference between you being overweight and not compliant. So it is pretty important to have that accuracy.
Yeah, when you're caravanning, every kilogram
It
counts.
really does.
I mean, you got to remember that a pack of dunny roll can weigh a kilo.
Exactly.
Now, have you ever had someone who's purchased a van? They've contacted you to verify the tear weight and the ball weight that's printed on the compliance plate. Has that ever happened? Because I reckon you must have had to deliver some bad news around that. And it wouldn't be the first time that someone has been caught out by a dodgy compliance plate.
Yeah. So this is a big issue in the industry at the moment. Probably in the last 3 months, I reckon we've had about 6 situations where caravan compliance plates aren't accurate. And we're not talking 50 kilos. We've had one that's over 350 kilos. So it can be a recipe for disaster, because you as a consumer, you think you're buying, you look at the compliance plate, you think you weigh that, but then you go and load the van up, and if you didn't have it weighed by someone like me, safe to tow or go over a weigh bridge, you wouldn't know any different. We've had one caravan in particular that really stands out, where customers were ready to embark on a trip around Australia, and they called me out. I set up their caravan on the scales, and their tow ball weight was over 480 kilos, and this is on a single axle caravan.
Hang on. It was 480 kilos on a single axle caravan.
Correct.
Was that because of the way they loaded it up, or it was just a dodgy build?
It was a dodgy build. Yeah, it was a
out.
dodgy build. And I've been in the industry for over 3.5 years now and been doing this, and I can quickly tell just by looking at a setup when I arrive if there's going to be an issue. And that one for me really stood out.
That is insane.
Yeah.
So, look, you do work with second-hand vans as well.
Yeah.
There would also be a few surprises, I'd imagine, because when it comes to the tear weight not marrying up to the compliance plate, because someone might have, chucked on some aftermarket gear, sold it to the customer without the customer realising that aftermarket gear is actually eating into their payload capacity.
Correct. So one thing that's really important when you are buying a second-hand van is to do your research. Find out what the caravan came out with as a standard feature, and then ask the seller, have they added anything to it? Because you are right. Like another one, for example, this is more related to a brand new van, but it's sort of a similar take on the question and what you've just asked me. So the caravan was built, went to the dealership, and the dealer, because this customer was actually new to caravanning, lent on the salesman to sort of guide them through the process. So the salesman said, okay, well, you need to add this, you need that, you need an extra battery, you need solar panel. But what he didn't tell them was that the 600 kilos of payload that they once had has now cut down to 350 kilos. So, it's the same thing with second-hand vans. You go and put a bike rack on, you go and put a toolbox on, that comes out of your payload. Now, if you are free camping, I tell people, if you are planning on free camping, you need a minimum of 550 to 600 kilos to be able to actually use water tanks, take bikes, food, etc. Otherwise, it's virtually impossible.
Yeah, it's funny. Like 550 to 600 really does seem like the minimum these days, because it wasn't that long ago, back when we had the RVMAA around Australia, when 300 kilos of payload was the norm, the recommended norm for a single axle van, and the recommendation for a tandem axle van was 400 kilos. And I mean, maybe back in the day, 15 years ago, that was sufficient. Mm-hmm. Do you reckon it's just because of the way we're travelling now is different, that we need that extra payload? Are we just taking more gear with us?
I think we are. I think everyone, we're very fortunate these days to have access to a lot of cool gadgets, etc. And it's hard, like having done the trip myself, it's hard not to get caught in that bubble where you're like, that collapsible ladder looks pretty cool. I'll probably need that at some point. I'll just grab that. Or I need this water pump to pump water out of the river. Or just, the list is endless. The list is absolutely endless. But at the end of the day, it all adds up. Like, for example, a fire pit. I took a fire pit around Australia. I only used it maybe 3 times. It's like 40 kilos.
40 kilos, yeah.
So it's a lot. It all adds up.
And, and we've also got to remember, 200 kilos would be 200 litres of water right there.
Correct. And some vans are coming out standard with 3 tanks these days.
And then you got your grey water as well. So, it might be a 110 litre grey water tank. If that's full, plus you filled up your 2 freshwater tanks before you leave your site,
correct,
you're just added an additional 100 odd
correct,
kilos. So that's why I guess we need that extra payload.
Yeah. definitely.
Whereas we didn't need it 10, 15 years ago necessarily. So we did speak, though, about compliance plates. But in your experience, because you do have a lot of clients who are new caravan manufacturers, do you reckon the industry is generally pretty good about accurately weighing their van and making sure that those weights are accurately reflected on the compliance plate?
I do feel like a lot of manufacturers are doing the right thing. A couple of those instances, those situations where I said that the tear weights were out by 300 kilos, etc., it could have potentially been human error when weighing.
Well, you want to believe that, don't you?
Yeah, you would want to believe that, but actually something just come to mind. With one of those situations, I had a customer go back to the dealer, actually, not the manufacturer. And what's really concerning is that the manufacturer was trying to, I believe was trying to weasel their way out of the situation. Now, the customer, he was pretty cluey. So he called me while he was there and I was on speaker. And the salesman at the dealership tried convincing the customer that your tow ball weight should not be included in your tear weight figure on your compliance plate.
Well, that's just wrong.
And that's where the discrepancy was. And tried to make it out as if I didn't know what I was talking about. So, for the most part, I'd like to hope that he just wasn't aware and he actually didn't know that. But I can't help but feel there is a lot of dealerships out there that are doing the wrong thing. And I guess as a caravanner myself, I would just, encourage new customers, just do your research, vet the manufacturer. If something doesn't sound right, just make a quick call. Call someone who you know is advanced in caravanning, or someone in the industry like myself. We're more than happy to verify if what they're actually telling you is correct, because at the end of the day, that could be the difference between you making a very expensive mistake.
You've touched on something that I feel we need to talk about because you do have specific credentials for your business, don't you? You're part of an organisation that accredits the work that you do. Correct.
So we're part of the MWAA, which stands for the Mobile Weighing Association Australia. And I got a call one day from a fellow mobile weighing company in New South Wales. And we just bounced some ideas off each other, and we thought it'd be a really good idea to start this association because, there's a lot of mobile weighing companies out there that are doing the right thing. However, there are some that are doing the wrong thing. And we thought it would be a good idea to start this organisation, this association, to vet all the mobile weighing companies across Australia. So it's just you pay a fee. You are given upon applying to become part of the association, you are given a list of reports that you have to basically put into your version of reporting based on the weights, and then that gets looked at by a VAS engineer. And once that gets looked at and approved, then you are basically accepted into the organisation, to the association. Now, part of that is if anyone across Australia, whether it be another weighing company or even someone, from the public who has their setup weighed and is given incorrect information or feels like they haven't been given the right information, we implore you to contact the MWAA and raise a ticket, and we will look into it and try and figure out what's going on.
Take me through, a typical job. You've arrived, a customer's called you, you've rocked up with all your gear. What does that weighing process look like? So
every weighing company operates differently. So the way that Safe to Tow operates, we make changes on the spot. So for us, no two jobs are ever the same. From when we start, we assess. We get all the numbers, all the manufacturing specs of the van, the vehicle. We put that into our report. So then what we do is we ask a number of questions to the client, whether it be, are you free camping? Do you plan on just staying in caravan parks? Are you going to be using your water tanks? We just sort of get a feel for how they travel. We speak about potential for the future to add bull bars and bike racks, etc. Once we've got all that information, we then start the process. So we start by weighing the caravan first. So we pop the van on the scales. We assess all the individual weights of each wheel. We assess the tow ball weight. We assess how balanced the caravan is as well. Before we move on, we make sure that caravan is 100% safe to tow. And what I mean by safe to tow is we make sure that axles are balanced. We make sure that the tow ball weight is set to the optimum weight limit. Now, depending on what car you have, the tow ball weight will vary. Based on my experience, I know the limitations of each car, so I can pretty much tell where I want the tow ball weight to be based on how many passengers in the car, based on what equipment they've got in the car, have they got a bull bar, etc. So once I'm happy with that and we've made the changes, we've looked at all the heights of the van, because a lot of people forget that travel height is what we call it, is very important, especially on a dual axle caravan. So I'm sure many of you on the road or driving on a freeway have seen a car or a caravan where the front of the car's, facing the sky, and the caravan's virtually the drawbars dragging along the floor. Like, I can't tell you how dangerous and how important that is to make sure that your heights on your vehicle and your caravan are adjusted correctly.
Because we're not just talking about property, we're talking about lives.
Correct, we are. And honestly, 95% of the jobs that we get are people calling us and they're like, oh, our setup doesn't travel safely, it sways, it doesn't feel comfortable, I nearly lost it on the freeway, etc. All of these factors are so important to managing and to ensuring that you travel safely, and not just travel safely, but you tow with confidence. Whether you're a new caravanner, whether you're a advanced caravanner, we get calls all the time where people have been caravanning for 20 years and they say, oh, we've just picked up this new caravan. It towed my old caravan towed fine. This caravan's smaller, but it's just not towing straight. I'm scared to tow it. We need you to come and have a look at this to sort it out. And, don't just think it's old caravans. We're just talking like brand new caravans, people picking up brand new $200,000 caravans, and they're saying that we don't feel comfortable towing this on the freeway.
There's no such thing as like a universal sort of perfect towing combination, is there?
No.
Every tow vehicle will tow a different caravan in a different way. The dynamics will shift.
Correct. You might change your car thinking that you're getting a car that's got more capability. But then you'll hitch it to that new car, and then you'll call me saying it towed fine behind my Ranger, but now I've got a Land Cruiser and I'm scared to drive it. So it's really interesting, and I guess where I'm going with it is just that no two setups are ever the same, and even though you think your setup is perfect, I can guarantee you there's always room for improvement, and it will be the difference between you feeling a lot more comfortable when towing.
Yeah, just don't take anything for granted.
Exactly.
What's it like though to deliver that bad news? If somebody's, caravan is just overweight, or their tow vehicle is not going to perform.
It's devastating. And for the most part, we can pretty much, we're very confident and competent in being able to fix a lot of the issues on the day. However, there are some cases where people have just got it completely wrong. And it's devastating. We've had setups where people have been ready to leave the next day for a trip around Australia, and we've had to break the news to them to the point where, they're in tears.
But do you reckon that's just because of their own lack of education, or they've been sold a lie?
A lot of people, a bit of both. A lot of people tend to put a post on social media and say, I've got this car, I've got this issue, what do you think I should do? And a lot of people out there do know what they're talking about, but you wouldn't go to an accountant if you were feeling sick. You would go to a doctor, right? So, the worst thing you can do is go and put a post out on social media and you'll get 100 different answers. Some of them may be correct, but some of them could be completely wrong and dangerous.
Social media is such a double-edged sword.
Safe to Tow, we get so many calls and we're just happy to help. We just don't want to see people make a mistake, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to then find out later on when they're about to leave on a trip around Australia that they've gone about it completely the wrong way. Like, for example, I'd literally just had a job 3 weeks ago that I did a reweigh for a couple of days ago, and their initial setup was completely wrong. They just got the wrong advice, they listened to the wrong people, and they couldn't have got it worse. And they were ready to leave. 4 kids, ready to leave on a trip around Australia, the most lovely family. And they were trying to do the right thing, but they just weren't given the right information. And after seeing us, basically just said that, you guys literally have to think about picking a new car because the car just won't do what you're wanting it to do.
Oh, that's devastating.
Yeah. So luckily, they had another car that was capable. They just needed to modify it slightly. After doing that, they were so scared to come to the second relay. They were not confident after the devastation of the first one, and sure enough, they were fine.
And you were able to give them that advice about the modifications they needed to make to that second vehicle.
We had the manufacturer and the people that were doing the work calling us saying, "What do we need to do? Okay, we'll do this, and this, and you'll be right." And that's all it took. You get the right information from the right people, make the right decision, and then you've got no surprises.
Just don't rely on social media because everyone's an expert.
And like I said, there are some people out there that do know what they're talking about, but there are a lot of people out there that couldn't be more incorrect.
And they're all care, no responsibility.
Exactly.
I want to pick your brains on dual cab utes. There's a lot of them. They're advertised to tow 3,500 kilos, and they're hugely popular tow vehicles, and most of them tow really quite well. But they do have, most of them do have that fatal flaw. So
I'm out at Sundowner RV in Dingley, Victoria. I'm sitting with Ben Budd because, look, you guys are doing something a little bit different when it comes to selling caravans. We're talking online auctions. Now, Ben, what can you tell me about it?
Yeah, so it's an idea that I came up with recently to help move second-hand vans, trade-ins, brand new vans, maybe last year's stock. So opportunity for buyers to buy at a really good price and great way for us to sell the vans.
But there's an important point to make here, isn't there, Ben? We are talking about caravans that have been thoroughly inspected by you and your staff. So if you bid on a used caravan, the buyer can buy with an element of confidence in comparison to some, buying off the private market.
Yeah, so I'd say to you more than an element of confidence, I would say with real confidence that the caravan's been checked. The most important thing is that it hasn't got water damage. That's what we find, that a lot of used caravans that come through here, we find that they've got water damage and we just can't take them on it.
Look, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you could buy a used caravan from somebody that, you find online. It's a private sale, but it's the luck of the draw.
It really is. It's very hard to know. Even for us, we're dealing with them every day. It's really hard to know whether a caravan's good or not good. If someone brings in a trade-in to us or a used caravan for us to buy, we'll spend about 2 hours just checking the caravan. And the main concern for us, of course, we need to know the fridge is working, the air conditioner's working, that the awning's in good condition. But the main thing that worries us is if it's had water ingress.
It's the caravan killer, isn't it?
Well, it really is. It's just that they can be fixed. It's just the cost and the effort that has to go into fixing them. And we do insurance work. We do caravan repairs. So we can do it, but it's just a big job, a lot of money. If you end up buying a caravan thinking that it's all good and you end up with one that's basically rotten, it's devastating,
So tell me about any warranty that might apply.
Yeah. So what we're doing with the caravans is caravans under $30,000, we are giving a 1-month warranty. So it gives you the opportunity to go over the van, use it, make sure everything's in good working order. Anything that you're concerned about, you bring it back, we'll sort it out for you. It's fully covered. Over $30,000, a 3-month warranty. That's on the used caravans. So same thing, but a bit more time to actually make sure everything's good. And brand new vans come with the new caravan manufacturer's warranty.
So what strikes me about that is if you, again, going back to the idea of a private sale, you're not going to get a 1-month warranty from Joe Blogs down the road.
Well, why would they? That's right.
Yeah. Exactly. There's also another important point here, isn't there, Ben? People have the opportunity before the online auction to come down to the showroom and actually physically inspect the caravan that they might want to bid on.
They can come down if you're local. We're open Monday to Saturday. Come in, have a look at the van, ask questions. If you're interstate or remote and you can't get in to see us, you can always ring us. We'll set up an online video with you, video chat, and we'll go around the van with you. You can ask questions. You can look at everything on it. and that way you can be sure that it is what you're looking to buy.
Now, obviously, Ben, you can't tow a caravan away without some form of registration here in Victoria. So what do you do there? What do you offer?
So if it's a new caravan, we do, as we do with all new caravans, we include either 12 months Victorian registration or an unregistered vehicle permit if you're going interstate. So you can take it home and register it where you're going to. If it's a used van, we'll do the transfer to your name with Vic Roads. That's part of what we do. And if you're going interstate, then we'll remove the number plate and give you an unregistered vehicle plate so you can tow it away.
So, Ben, with the new caravans that you're auctioning off, I'd imagine that they come with the full, manufacturer's warranty as well.
Yeah, that's correct. If it's a brand new van, then it comes with the manufacturer's warranty. As always, when we sell a brand new van, it comes with the new warranty. It's no different. It's just that you have the opportunity to bid on it and potentially pick it up at a better price than you would normally pay for it.
Now, you've done one of these auctions before and that was successful. How did that one go?
Yes, they went great. We had a lot of interest, sold several caravans. And, the best part about it was, it finished, I think it was last Sunday evening. Monday morning, we had the winning bidders in here. They didn't have to come in Monday morning. They were here Monday morning. They were wrapped because they got a great buy. We had the vans out in the next few days, money in the bank. So I was wrapped. Everyone was really happy. So, yeah, great success.
So, Ben, one other thing that occurs to me is, look, if you're buying a vehicle privately, sometimes there's a bit of a risk. There might be some sort of a loan, some money sitting against the vehicle, some other form of encumbrance, or it might have been written off. Do you guys do any checks there?
Yeah, absolutely. So every caravan, we do a PPSR check, which is the Personal Property Security Register, to make sure that there's no finance owing on the van, no encumbrances. That's the correct word to use. And we also then do all of our checks. So before you bid, you can actually online see and download our 80-point checklist. So that's where we've gone over pretty much every aspect of the van to make sure it's in good condition, even just scratches and things like that. We try to detail those so that you know exactly what you're buying. If you can't get in to look at the van before bidding, you can actually have the information so you know what you're bidding on. That's the point. So, we're never going to try and cover up a little bit of something or put a cushion in front of that damage over there. That's not what we're about. If the caravan has some sort of damage, you might have scratched cooktop or bench. So tell you about it. You might go, yeah, that's right. I'm happy with a caravan with a scratched bench. But you know what you're buying. And that's what we're offering. That's why really there's a big difference buying it from us over buying it privately or buying it at another auction where it's, as is, your problem, you tow it away, nothing to do with the auction house. That's not us. Okay, so we're taking responsibility. We'll be there to support you.
I actually do have one final question for you, Ben, and that is, look, if I'm buying a new caravan or even a used caravan from a dealer, I might want them to add a few bits and pieces. Can you guys do that after the online auction?
Definitely. So we've got the full workshop here. So we do add things like sway control units, diesel heaters, bike racks. So there's lots and lots of options. If you buy the caravan, doesn't have to be bought from us. We'll still add those things on your caravan for you. But if you buy it at auction, you go, look, it's great, but I need sway control. I want to have a bike rack. I want to upgrade the batteries to lithium. That's all stuff that we can do. If you want to know what sort of costs involved before bidding at the auction, give us a call, come in, talk to us. That's what we do.
So there you go, guys. Look, if you want to, buy a new or used caravan with full transparency in terms of any damage, if it's a used caravan, knowing that it's been fully checked, that there's no water ingress, no water damage or rot. This online auction sounds like a fantastic opportunity to scoop up a fantastic deal. So, frankly, from my point of view, why wouldn't you give it a crack if you were in the marketplace? Now, Ben, when's it happening?
That's what I say, Max. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you?
So when's it happening? So our next auction's going to be finishing early August. So that'll all be going up online in the next couple of weeks. So you'll have a good week to 10 days to have a look at the vans. Most of the vans that are going on the next auction are already available to look at in our showroom.
And if people want more information, Ben, where would they go?
So best place is our website, which is sundownerrv.com.au.
So it sounds like a fantastic opportunity for you guys out there at home to pick up an amazing deal on either a new or a used caravan.
Want to pick your brains on dual cab utes. There's a lot of them. They're advertised to tow 3,500 kilos, and they're hugely popular tow vehicles, and most of them tow really quite well. But they do have most of them do have that fatal flaw. So in that if you're towing right on 3,500 kilos, it's unlikely the GCM will be sufficient to allow you to have a realistic payload capacity in the car. What's your view?
I couldn't agree with you more. So dual cab utes, although they are a great towing vehicle, and I guess they're priced, their price is attractive as well compared to a wagon like a Land Cruiser or something. So that's why I believe they are a really popular choice. But they do limit your brake, not your brake towing capacity, sorry, they do limit your GCM. Now, I guess what you should do before you consider buying a car or a caravan is you got to ask yourself, how are you going to travel? How many passengers? What are your non-negotiables? With a dual cab ute, you pick up in payload. So a dual cab ute, depending on what model, make, you'll have about 900 kilos out of the factory, depending on what model you go for. You compare that to a Land Cruiser, you've got 600 kilos of payload. However, the dual cab ute has the more payload, but it's limiting on the GCM, whereas the wagon's the opposite. So there's no real, I guess, there's no which one's better, which one's not better. I guess it's which one fits your budget and which one is going to suit your lifestyle. With a dual cab ute, you can get away with not having to do a GVM upgrade on it. Whereas with the Land Cruiser, I can tell you now, most Land Cruisers, the first thing you do is put a bull bar on it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Put a snorkel on it, a winch, etc. Roof rack. You're hitching up a decent van behind it. You're pretty much at max.
Yeah, and you're at the point where you can't really even take a passenger.
Correct. The Land Cruiser is probably the biggest letdown for people who don't know the payload situation with them. Whereas the dual cab utes, they're not as big of a letdown. I feel like what I see from a day-to-day is people who are buying dual cab utes are more families because they know the payload situation. However, if you're not sure, just call us. Just call Safe to Tow. Speak to someone in the industry. Do your research because selecting the right car from day one is really important.
I do a lot of caravanning, using lots of different vehicles and caravan combinations. And I just personally never like to tow right on the vehicle's towing capacity just because it's rated to tow 3,500 kilos with 350 on the book. I would feel much more comfortable if I was only towing 3,000 kilos.
Yeah. A lot of people say to me, they've got this little comment to say that they don't want the tail wagging the dog.
That's right.
They want the car to be heavier than the van. But these days, the weight of caravans, I'm seeing tear weights of 3,300 kilos on vans these days. It's not uncommon, which just blows my mind. Because how are you meant to get a car that weighs more than 4 ton, right? Unless you're getting one of those big
Yankee ute things.
Yankee utes, right? And then you struggle to park them. It's there's a fine line. I guess, it's hard to tick every box, and it's not uncommon these days for a caravan to be heavier than the car. I do recommend the car to be heavier than the van, but it's not always the case. Sometimes it's really hard to achieve that.
So what do you want out of a good tow vehicle? You want wheelbase and you want mass.
Correct. Not only that, you want to make sure that I'm going back to that, asking yourself the style of traveling that you're going to be doing, right? For example, a dual cab ute, it's such a good idea to put your bikes on the back of a dual cab ute. So these days we're really fortunate where these dual cab utes are coming out with these roller cab lockers, like those garage door sort of style lockers. And, putting a bike rack on a van is probably one of the biggest issues that I face every day.
That's interesting because most new caravans will have provision for bike racks on the very rear. And when you say it's an issue, is that because we're adding weight to the rear of the caravan?
Correct.
And
that's
reducing your bull weight?
That's right. So what we see is that most caravans these days, people are optioning them. Like, it's not just, okay, well, this caravan comes with absolutely everything. Everyone's different. Some people want to put a bike rack on. Some people want to put a motorbike on the front of their van, right? Which we do get from time to time. There is no right or wrong, but I guess if you're in the market for a new van, These are the things you got to look for. These are the questions that you got to ask. So if the Caravan doesn't come out with it from the factory, then you need to think about, if I put this on, how is it going to affect the dynamic of the Caravan? How is it going to tow? Where are the water tanks positioned in relation to the bike rack? Does it have a toolbox? All these little things. Where are the batteries going to go? All these little things are going to be the difference between you picking up this Caravan, driving it out of the driveway, and it tracking behind the car safely.
And I think you make a really important point, because when the Caravan is, built, it's built and engineered and designed in a particular way, not necessarily to have all this extra gear on it, because that's going to throw out the dynamics of the Caravan under tow.
That's right. That's right. We had this is sort of related to this topic, but we had I remember this single axle Caravan that I told you about that had that 450 or 480 kilos of tow ball weight. So it was a custom design Caravan to a degree, where it was an 18-foot. So 18-foot vans are on the cusp of being able to be a single axle or a dual axle. So with this particular van, they opted for a single axle, but they customized it so that the entry door was moved from the rear of the van to the front of the van. In doing so, what they did was, in order to build the van, the axles of the Caravan had to be moved back towards the back of the van. So when they picked this van up, they didn't know any different. So they rocked up to the appointment and they were towing with, I believe it was an MUX. And as soon as I saw the car was facing the sky. So I knew there was definitely going to be an issue with this.
So part of the reason they had such an incredibly large ball weight was due to the axle positioning.
Correct. So this sort of forms what we're talking about is adding extras, customizing your vans. You need to make sure that that they've done it before, for one, but what you're asking for isn't going to create other issues for you, like the bike racks, putting them on the front, putting them on the back. Some manufacturers reinforce their rear wall and they put them on the back because they know that all the storage, the tunnel boots, the toolbox, everything is at the front. So that's why they put the bike racks on the back. However, there are some manufacturers that will add the bike rack after the Caravans are actually leave the factory and they get done at the dealerships. So that's where you got to be careful. When you're getting the bike rack added at the dealership, you have to think to yourself, well, how much does the bike rack actually weigh? What car have I got?
Yeah.
And is it going to create any issues for me?
Has the weight of even the bike rack itself been factored into the ball weight of the Caravan, that sort of thing? There is another matter, though, when it comes to tow vehicles that I think a lot of people don't think about, and that's the axle ratings of the tow vehicle itself. And I think this is an issue that's quite near and dear to your heart, isn't it? Do you come across this often, where an axle on a tow vehicle is underrated to support the load being asked of it? I'm betting that a lot of people watching this now have never even considered the axle rating of their four-wheel drive.
Yeah, this is a very big, hot topic, actually. I've done a lot of discussions about this at the Caravan shows and even at four-wheel drive clubs. So people are and we're talking about people who are experts, right? Like they've been four-wheel driving for years, caravanning for years, and they've never even heard of an axle rating before and the effects that it has. So, there's just not enough information out there about axle loadings and how important it is in selecting the right Caravan based on your car. So, for example, a car might come out with a brake towing capacity of 3.5 tonne, which most vehicles these days do. But what they don't tell you is that the limiting factor of that is going to be the weight that gets applied to your rear axles. Now, depending on wheelbase, etc., that amount of weight on the rear axles can be multiplied depending on the wheelbase. Everything comes into play. Have you got a bull bar on the front of the car? So what you really need to be asking is, or looking for is, okay, the car has a 3.5 tonne brake towing capacity, but what is the axle rating? And is that axle rating going to be high enough for me to carry some stuff in the car, a couple of passengers, a full tank of fuel, and then don't forget about the Caravan, which we're finding is a very common, probably when we first started this business, we were seeing more people overweight, whereas now people aren't as heavy. They're more aware of their weights. But what we're seeing a lot of is the axle rating is becoming a big issue because of these manufacturers of these vehicles are forgetting to well, not just forgetting, but it's also up to us to do the research ourselves to think about, well, can I actually hitch this van up to this car and tow it safely and legally?
What we're talking about, I guess, is that any tow vehicle and caravan setup is only as strong as its weakest link. End of the day, the component that has the lowest rating or safe working load is going to be the limiting factor. And, that could be the coupling, it could be the safety change, the axle, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Do you reckon there's enough education around that as a general topic?
No, I don't believe there is.
No.
I think it's up to the buyer, like the customer, the buyer. If you're in the market for a new van, you have to do your research. But obviously, if it's not something that you're competent on, you should seek advice. And unfortunately, I do see on a daily basis, I do see people who have been given the wrong information, not just from a caravan manufacturer or a salesman. It is up to us to do the research. Now, for example, there's one particular car that stands out for me that if you weren't in this industry, you wouldn't know this is the case. So, for example, this vehicle has a 3,000 kilo brake towing capacity. And what they don't tell you is, until you read the fine print, is that if you're towing a load or a caravan, a trailer, over 2.5 ton, then the tow ball download actually drops down to 180 kilos. So, in my opinion, that's impossible. It's virtually impossible. You're actually safer having the tow ball weight heavier than you are lighter, because then it will create swaying problems. Now, they don't tell you that when you go to look at the car, right? So how are you meant to make a decision when you don't know that, when they don't educate you and tell you that?
There's just a lot of stupid mistakes as well in some caravan manufacturing, and by all means, not all, because I think, as we established, the vast majority are probably doing the right thing. In fact, they are. But I was sent a picture recently, and I ran it in our GoRV digital mag, and it was a picture of a coupling. A ball coupling rated to 3,500 kilos, but the ATM of the van was something like 3,800 kilos. So that's what I guess we're talking about. If you were to load it up to 3,800 kilos per the compliance plate, suddenly that coupling is no good.
That's right. But that's up to, I guess, it's up to the manufacturer or the dealership to, I guess, have that conversation with you.
But it's a stupid mistake.
It is. And we see incorrect compliance plates all the time where ATMs are not maxed out to what the actual axle load ratings are on the caravan. And it's just like the customer has to go back to the manufacturer. It's just the process that needs to happen. But it shouldn't have to be that way. We had a customer the other day who rocked up to an appointment, and I went to go unhitch their caravan, and I was dumbfounded. I was blown away. These are brand new to caravanning. They did their handover. The handover only went for about half an hour because they were short-staffed. They were at a caravan show, and they didn't show them how to hitch a DO35 and how you got to clip the pin on.
Did it pop off?
So no. Luckily, it didn't. This was a 3.5 ton van, mind you.
Yeah.
I rocked up to the appointment, and the DO35 was sitting on top of the pin freely to the point where I was blown away. I said, didn't they show you? They said, no.
All you got to do is push a button.
They didn't show us. No, the button was pushed.
The button was pushed.
But it wasn't seated.
Oh,
the button was
gotcha.
pushed, and they dropped it on there and left it like that.
Oh, right.
Yes.
So the DO35 was basically engaged, and they dropped it onto the pin.
Which is even worse because it was sitting higher up. Yeah, it was sitting higher up, and they didn't show them how to.
They didn't tow it down the freeway or something like that?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yes, and they were lucky that it didn't come off the back of the car. I've had other customers that I've actually called them and saying, "Oh, are you guys still coming to the appointment?" And they say, "Oh, you're not going to believe what happened." I'm like, "What happened?" "We're just around the corner. The caravan came off the back of the car." "What do you mean?" "We didn't press the pin."
Oh, no.
I went there and they're like, "Oh, we didn't even know we had to."
This is why, frankly, shows like this, when we talk to actual professionals, we're giving you the right advice, because there is these stories are horrific, and I just don't even know what to say to that. Look,
I was blown away by it. Absolutely blown away.
Mate.
But, at the end of the day, you've got to start somewhere. You know, it's so good to see so many people who are going out there and giving it a go. Towing a 3.5 ton van can be really daunting. It's just a big box behind the car, right? But, you know, I take my hat off to people who are giving it a go, but it's so important that they are given the right information, because at the end of the day, it needs to happen. Otherwise, it just creates an issue for all of us on the road.
Yeah, no, it really does. And I just think there's no question that's, or there are no dumb questions.
No, there isn't. And that's what I tell my customers.
Something as simple as how to engage a DO35 coupling. It's probably the most popular coupling in use.
I would think that in a caravan handover, that would be the most important thing to show a customer is how to hitch and unhitch.
Far out. Okay. Look, let's move on. Let's talk about loading of the Caravan. The way I do it is I load all the heavier stuff over the axle group and then gradually load towards the front. Do you reckon that's still the best advice?
Yeah, it is. It is. However, it just depends on your setup. You know, like I said before, no two caravans are the same. Some are tow ball weight heavy, some are rear heavy. But in an ideal world, yes, the heavier stuff over the axles and then gradually move it forward. You want to put your heavier stuff down low and your lighter stuff up higher. Some people, you know, like some of the people that have been caravanning for years will say that, you know, you should always travel with your water tanks full. You know, I tend to disagree. I travelled Australia. I'm not going to travel with 200 litres of water on board if I'm not going to use it. It's just...
You're just burning fuel as well.
Exactly. You're just burning fuel. You're putting extra weight on the car. Like the difference between travelling with 200 kilos of water and not travelling with 200 kilos of water, I really feel it in my car.
Sort of depends on where you're going as well. Because if you're doing remote camping, you're going to need that 200 litres.
Exactly.
I take your point.
Exactly.
I do take your point. I once did an interesting exercise actually where I had a caravan with the water tanks placed right around the axles, and a caravan that had the water tanks more towards the front, towards the ball. And I weighed them separately, both empty and full. I'm talking about I weighed the ball weight empty and full, and with the water tanks full of the caravan that had the water tanks near the axles, the difference on ball weight was absolutely negligible. Yep. So it really does make a difference to put your heavy gear, you know, where it can be supported. It
really does. But again, you know, it pays to have it weighed. During the appointment, we go through all of that. So, for example, a lot of caravans, every caravan's different. So some caravans will have 2 water tanks placed in front of the axle. Some will have one in front, one behind. Some will have them in the middle of the axle. It just depends on how the caravan is built, where everything is, that they'll position the water tanks accordingly. But, you know, it's not uncommon for us to drain a water tank and fill up a grey water tank to simulate that tank being moved to the back.
Sure.
For that reason, to offset tow ball weight, etc. We were talking about axle loads before, about certain cars having a lower rated axle loading. A way to improve the setup and actually have the vehicle tow it compliantly is the difference between having a water tank full and not full, or the positioning of it. So that's a really good point that you made, that, you know, we can see a tow ball weight change between 50 to 100 kilos depending on where water tanks are and if they're filled and if they're not filled.
Okay, so you've spoken to a customer, you've educated them all about the proper loading of their van and that sort of stuff. You know, everything else is compliant in terms of the weights, but the caravan might still sway. What then? I mean, is there anything that you can do to either the caravan or the tow vehicle to improve the towing performance?
Definitely. Yeah. So majority of the time it is related to weight distribution and incorrect weight distribution. So that might mean so for like 20 kilos, for example, your tow ball weight might be 20 kilos lighter, right? After we make a change, but like either we move a jerry can or we might take the spare wheel off the back of the van and relocate it to the front. We get the customer to go for a drive, bang, sway's gone. It's as simple as that. 20 kilos is the difference between a caravan swaying, not swaying. Majority of the time it can be fixed that way. However, if the swaying still persists, the next thing we look at is, on a dual axle van especially, is the weight distribution between both front and rear axles. So again, we mentioned about a caravan cruising down the freeway and it's sitting down like that. What we typically find when the caravan's on the scales is that the front axle is load bearing a lot more than the rear. So there might be like a 600 kilo difference in weight. And I'm talking, if you've got around 100 mil difference between front and rear of the van, you can expect around a 400 to 500 kilo difference in weight. Okay. And that is also can cause sway. So it's a matter of either maybe your car's sagging, get a set of airbags fitted to it, do a 2-inch lift, even get an adjustable hitch just to bring the front of the van up. So some vans are off-road. They sit really high, but the hitching point on the car sits really lower, so they're just not compatible. So in order to fix that, you have to fit one of those adjustable hitches. The other thing that can cause it, if that's all sorted, is a wheel alignment. So we hear it all the time. My Caravan's brand new. I don't need a wheel alignment. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. It's brand new. It's not going to need it. Couldn't be further from the truth. Every Caravan, independent wheeled Caravan, independent suspension, should be getting a wheel alignment. Now, there would be some manufacturers out there that would be doing wheel alignments before the Caravans leave the workshop, but that, for us, we're not seeing it.
So I think that's a really interesting point, because I've been doing this a long time as well, and the issue of a Caravan needing a proper wheel alignment is never discussed. To the point where I don't mind admitting it's not something that really, crosses my thoughts very often either. So you're saying that a Caravan with unaligned, misaligned wheels can actually make a big difference to how it performs under tow?
100% it can. 100%. We did a YouTube video not long ago for a travel couple who actually had a tyre blowout on a brand new Caravan, and we did the wheel alignment on it just for the sake of it, and that tyre that was replaced was that far out, it wasn't even registering on our gauge. It
blew out because it's not aligned correctly. There's a whole lot of additional force being applied to that vehicle if it goes around a corner, that sort of thing.
Heat, force. It was wearing. I don't know the direct cause of it. However, it was just, is it coincidental that one tyre that was so far out decided to blow up on a brand new Caravan? I don't know. Coincidence or wheel alignment related? I believe it was the wheel alignment that caused it. We're getting $200,000 Caravans. You're paying $300 for a wheel alignment, and it's fixing the problem. Tyres these days are $400, $500. Now, another thing that can cause sway, believe it or not, is a cheap tyre.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So if you get, not saying that they're not great. So a lot of these Chinese import Caravans that are coming from China and being assembled here, they come out with tyres that are they're decent, but they're not as good as some of the bigger tyres. Now, when we've exhausted all possible options, we've done the wheel alignment, we've checked the weights, we've gone through everything. The last thing we check is if it still sways, if sways persist, tyres. And it fixes the problem.
So you've done a fair bit of caravanning yourself. Have you ever experienced a serious sway? Because I don't mind admitting a long, long time ago, when I really was just starting caravanning, I must have been 21 years old or something. I was heading out to the Flinders Ranges and wanted to get there in time before the Prairie Hotel closed. And so we're barreling along the highway. The Caravan picked up a serious sway, and it put the fear of God into me. The only thing that saved me was I knew enough to apply the override brake. Do you reckon that's still the best advice?
Listen, when it comes to how to tow and how to get out of a sway, I'm not a professional at it. Personally, I haven't experienced sway. I'm a firm believer of having all your weights done and setting it all up correctly, and then I personally believe you will never have an issue with sway. The best thing to probably do is maybe do a Caravan towing course or something like that. But from the information that I've been given, the best thing to do is to apply that brake to the Caravan, let the Caravan straighten up, let it straighten the tow vehicle up, and then you're good to go. However, what you should do is find out why. Okay, so ask yourself, what am I doing differently? How have I packed today that's causing this? And don't just keep going. Pull over. If you are experiencing sway and it is uncommon and it is something that you haven't experienced before, get out of the car, go to the van, have a look. Is my water tank full? It's 9 times out of 10, it's going to be tow ball weight related. If it hasn't happened before, then it is going to be a weight distribution issue. So without overloading the front to the point where you're going to create other issues, just start small. Move some, some tools or just something. So if you've got like a slab of beer or a slab of water, move it from the back of the van, bring it to the front of the van, and then go for another drive. Drive to the conditions, obviously. You don't want to just speed up to 100 Ks and roll the dice. I'm not asking you to do that. But yeah, pull over and make some changes. You can't expect a different result without making any physical changes to the setup, right? That's just insane. So yeah, pull over, do those things. Have a think about, am I traveling with the back water tank full and the front one empty? Is it pulling weight to the back, and is my tow ball weight too light? Just make some slight adjustments and then go for another drive. Don't keep going, because it's going to happen again.
I think that's really good advice. And final question for you, Leon. What do you think are some of the attributes that people should look for in a new caravan in terms of its design for safe towing?
Okay. What I would probably recommend is buying a caravan, like write a list of what you want and what you expect in a van. Try to find a caravan that comes out standard with those features, rather than having to physically add this, add that on top. If it comes from the manufacturer with everything that you want on it, within reason, obviously. If you want to add a diesel heater, that doesn't add much weight. But if you're having to make big changes, you're sort of setting yourself up for a bit of a disaster. I'm not saying it's always going to be the case, but have a think about it. Like, if you're going to be adding a bigger toolbox, a bike rack to the front, it's going to have an effect on the van, right? So try and find a van that is a package and it comes with everything, to avoid those issues, because the van has been put through testing, it's had the engineering done, it comes as a complete unit, and they know it works. The second thing I would do is, without going down the rabbit hole too deep, read some reviews, feedback, jump online, speak to people who have the van. They're the best people to talk to. Someone who's owned one.
And what do they tow it with?
What do they tow it with? How is the after support service with warranty, etc. Also, for me, I'm a big believer in having like open conversations with the dealerships and asking them, like, have you guys had any issues with this van, or what are some of the things to look out for? Look at reviews as well. Obviously, read some reviews. What else could you do? Speak to someone like myself, a weighing company, or someone who has been in the industry for quite some time, and say, I'm looking at buying this van. I'm thinking about optioning this, or I'm thinking about buying this car to tow this van, etc. Just ask. That's all it takes.
Mate, this has been a fascinating conversation, Leon. Really appreciate you being here. I think you've made some really excellent points, especially, about, buying your caravan as a complete package to the extent that you can, because you are just throwing out potentially the towing performance of the van. Again, thank you. Really appreciate it, mate.
No worries. It's a pleasure. And if anyone has any questions about anything that we've discussed, or even if we haven't discussed it, just reach out. We're more than happy to.
And where can people find you?
So you can jump online on safetotow.com.au, or our phone number is 0421 221 937. We're more than happy to have a chat. Feel free. Like we said before, there's no stupid questions, no such thing. Just ask away.
If in doubt, just get on the blower to this guy.
That's it.